Good evening and welcome to The Big Debate. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Glad that you can join us for this edition of the show. The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, yesterday, 14th of June 2022, delivered the national budget for 2022-2023 to the nation on behalf of the President. The 48.1 trillion budget, he says, is dedicated to delivering the households that are still in subsistence into the money economy. The minister also said that this budget would return the economy to the pre-COVID status. In the budget speech, the minister echoed that they would not be increasing taxes. He also re-echoed what the president had said previously at the State of the Nation, that Uganda had entered the lower middle income status. However, he was careful not to use the words middle income status. So many reactions have come from the budget speech, whether this budget actually responds to the biting issues, especially economic issues. Well, we dig deep into the National Budget 2022-2023. In studio, I have the Honorable Stephen Birahwa Mukitale, former MP for Bulisa, former chairperson of the National Economy Committee. I believe you also sat on the Budget Committee when you were in Parliament. Yes. Honorable, it's good to have you on the show. Welcome to CTV and to the Big Debate.
Gabriel, the host for the Big Debate, and CTV management. I'm happy to be here. It's my premier appearance in this very modern-looking studio with a very good natural environment. But next time, give me that yellow chair, and then you can moderate on another color.
Well, I will then add to his introduction that he is a member of the NRM party. Yes, but I believe the last time you were in Parliament, weren't you there as an independent?
Yes, that's the occupational hazard of being independent-minded and loving your country more than your party.
Yes, but I like that you, always remind people that you're a member of the NRM and you always call it your party. Our other guest, Mr. Wanzala Martin, Executive Director, African Youth Development Link. It is good to have you here, sir, especially considering the minister did give those stats on, the number of young people and, how we're supposed to be responding to the plight of young people. I don't know if the budget did respond to that, but we'll come to you on it. But welcome to the show. Also for you, you've made an appearance.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Thank you, like Honorable said, thank you, CTV management and our esteemed viewers. I'm glad to be here and hope we can have a good interaction.
All right. Dear viewers, would like to thank you for joining us for the show, but would like you to interact with us for the whole period of the show. Just use the hashtag CTV Big Debate, and whatever social media platform you're using, we should be able to find your comment, as long as you remember to use that hashtag. Honorable Birahwa, I would like to begin with you on, yes, you did listen to the minister, and you've been engaging with these issues for a while. Your initial thoughts on the budget as read to the nation yesterday?
Thank you, Gabriel. I congratulate the President, who is the Constitutional Minister of Finance, for doing his annual event in terms of owning the budget. Of course, today we no longer have a budget to be debated after, since the Public Finance Management Act. We did change that, so we are to the 60th independence anniversary. 60 years of age, you become a pensioner. That means you're of age. And you can no longer blame colonialists for anything. It means you own up your challenges. This budget also is a 13th NDP budget. A budget is a one-year plan. So we are trying to achieve the Vision 2040 through the NDPs, and we are in NDP 3, the 13th year. So it would also be very useful in terms of policy, in terms of delivery mechanism, in terms of outcomes, to start questioning the priorities, the funding priorities for the last 13 years. 13 years of trillions in energy. Do we have affordable power? Do we have accessible power? Because if a utility is not affordable and not accessible, it becomes a white elephant. By the way, it is also almost 17 years of trillions in roads. How come we have been investing in roads without delivering public transport? No wonder we are discussing the speaker's vehicle, the MP's 200 million. By now, across the board, this country should be talking about public transport. A permanent secretary, a minister. By the MPs, they enjoy going to Karamoja, to Kisoro by bus, not by these risky vehicles they are driving all along. So there are policy issues we need to be looking at this point in time as we audit. UPE is 27 years old, if I still remember. You do stock taking. The president owned up the dropout rate of 68%, and in Karamoja, the completion is only 6%. Because when we talk about a budget, it's an expenditure, and the priorities in trillions are the areas I'm mentioning. COVID also did audit us that we are not doing well in terms of the functionality of the regional referral hospitals. And you remember the challenges of oxygen, the challenges of the MRs and procurement issues. So that again, we then say, after 2 years of COVID, when the private sector, a lot of SMEs did collapse, this budget should deliberately be intending to resuscitate the economy. It is mentioned very many times in the budget speech, and even if you see what is on the cover, it is mentioned. But when you check the content and the substance in terms of the numbers of the budget, that's where I disagree with my government. That you can't be saying that you have a budget of 48 trillion and URA is expecting only 25 trillion, but almost 18, close to 20 trillion is going to go for debt servicing. And you speak as if you're in comfort zone with slumber and with pride. I disagree, I'm an NRM. I disagree, because it is a trade-off. What would have given us good social services, more money in making this a lot of literacy we are generating to reach the people and save us to use charcoal and deforest is not possible because you are debt servicing. It is a trade-off in terms of human resource. The children of the poor who have not gone to school for 2 years and are lacking school fees, and those candidates who have failed to raise their money and have dead years because they cannot register at university, and those who have failed to pay UNEB fees. So basically what I'm saying in principle is that this budget should not have been like the other previous budget, business as usual. It's coming after 2 years of COVID. It's coming when the economic times are very difficult. It's coming when we are saying tighten the belt, leave the bread and go for cassava. I have not seen that in the State House budget. I'm not seeing it in Parliament. I'm not seeing it at all levels.
All right.
And whereas I agree in principle with the Paris development model, from a planning angle, from data collection, from financial inclusion, I would rather you don't do it managed at the center. Article 178 of our Constitution, as amended 2005, did provide for devolution on regional government. I am happy the motion I owned of cities did go through, but the cities have no funding. The regional referral hospitals were found not to be working. The regional universities of Bunyoro and some areas and Usoga are still lacking. The industrial parks are still lacking. So can we also agree that as we become of age 60 years, we need to look at this country as it was at the architecture of the foundation of this republic, that there are 15 regions, including Karamoja, including Kigezi, including Teso, including Busoga. Now you call them, my grandchildren, that they are Jiga. Yesterday they were an industrial city of this country. Let's put resources in all these regions, because it's unconstitutional for some regions to make this a Kampala issue, to make this a State House issue. Uganda is of 15 regions. The regional government is intended as a delivery mechanism to have equal opportunities in this country, regional balance, unity and diversity. And as an advocate of national dialogue, I want to emphasize that when you see what we have failed to achieve in these many years, as NRM, which promised an independent, integrated, self-sustaining economy, as point number 5 of the 10-point program, we should really own up and say, can we have a honest conversation? And therefore, as an advocate of a national dialogue, it just confirms we are long overdue for a national dialogue.
All right.
There are areas we need to revise.
Okay. For those of you who've listened to Honorable Birahwa before, you know that somewhere he will get to the point of national dialogue. Today he decided that it will be in his introduction, just in case we don't give him a chance to go that direction. Mr. Wanzala, your initial thoughts on the budget as read to the nation, and Honorable Nkitale reminded us that from the time we passed the Public Finance Management Act, it's a bit different, because previously, yes, the budget would be read, but then there would be debate. Some of those taxes would not be as they were read, because the debate came afterwards. But now, by the time the budget is read, it is the approved budget. Parliament has already passed it. But what exactly does this budget mean, especially for the young people? Did the young people get to hear, the things that they wanted this budget to be responding to?
Thanks again, Gabriel. I would say that the answer to your question is yes and no. Yes, the budget does speak to quite a number of issues that are pertinent or important to the young people of this country. I would say that the constituency that I represent, that's of the young people, are not, they are unique but not so unique in a way that almost every sector of the economy touches them, because we do not live in a vacuum. And so almost every sector is important to the young people. And so each and every sector that gets an allocation in one or another benefits the young people. But there are those sectors that are critical to the young people. But for me, I know Honorable has talked about some of the issues that are critical to us, including the PDM, the Parish Development Model, the UPE program, the education, which is under human capital development. But in terms of the initial thoughts, I thought that we needed to first begin by interrogating the theme itself. The theme of the budget. When I read here, it talks about full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. And I want to put it on record that most of these, if not all, of these issues that are highlighted within the theme of the budget are important. But when you go down to the actual allocations, you realize that there is more. The allocations leave a lot to be desired. Look at what has been allocated, for example, to agriculture, vis-a-vis what the need is on the ground. I was talking to a friend as I was on my way here, and he made a comment that I agree with, that a parliament or a legislature that is only comprised of about a little over 500 members is taking an allocation that is almost similar to the agriculture sector that has for so long been famed or talked about as the backbone of the economy. What does that tell us in terms of priorities? And the agriculture sector is where most of our young people actually are found. We are encouraging, back in my sector, we are encouraging young people to get back to, to agriculture as a way of addressing the unemployment issue that is rampant within the country. Agriculture offers us one of the biggest escape routes from unemployment. But we shall not achieve that if we do not match the aspirations with the resource allocations that we need. Talk about industrialization. Yes, we are saying we want to fund industrialization, but even what has been allocated to that sector is little, one. But also, two, how much of these allocations to these sectors trickle down to the young person? Because ideally, this money is supposed to be to go and support people that are active in this sector, but how many of our young people are supported in terms of small-scale industries? Because that is where most of our young people are found, small-scale manufacturing, young people in the cottage industries. How many of them are going to benefit from this? Your guess is as good as mine, but I don't want to leave the theme minus talking about the issue of digital transformation that has been talked about within the budget. The minister pointed it out as one of those that digital transformation, and then they talked about innovation, technology and transfer, and all these things. I sit here and I keep wondering, how are we going to, because young people are I think, the biggest innovators that we have in the country, because the digital space is more like the preserve of young people. It is what drives us as young people. But
and developed economies are harnessing that so well. And
absolutely,
making,
absolutely,
billions
and
of dollars.
That is down to adequate investment, and the investment needs to be well thought through and not simply based on making statements that are aimed at simply appeasing or patronizing a particular sector or sect of the population. And also still within the digital transformation or innovation, technology transfer issue, how are we going to help our young people to benefit from this if we still have the internet, the cost of the internet still high? We still have, important spaces where young people interact and do business, like, Facebook still closed down. I think our government needs to understand that you can't have your cake and still eat it. We ought to mean what we say and walk the talk.
Right.
Yes. Lastly, I want to talk about the issue of we have. I talked about the unemployment issue earlier on. It is one of the biggest problems we have, one of the biggest challenges we have as young people in the country. And a lot has been talked about the oil and gas sector. There are quite a number of opportunities in there, but how much of this budget are we putting aside for in terms of human capital development, to prepare our young people to harness and take advantage of the opportunities that lie within this important sector? That and so many more. We need. I think for me, it is important that we focus on making meaningful investment through the budget to and be intentional in ensuring that this budget or subsequent budgets benefit the young people that are part of the majority that was affected by COVID-19, as the Honorable talked about.
All right.
We cannot have this budget be the same way. It can't be thought through and developed and delivered as if we are, in a normal environment, yet we are coming out of an abnormal situation. So I thought that we needed to have a budget that speaks to the realities of the context and not one that is divorced from the situation that we have on the ground.
All right. Honorable, you will remember that the previous budget, 2021-2022, one of the issues was, it was another parliament that had passed that budget, and therefore, we couldn't take care of some of these things. This one has been fully discussed and passed by the 11th Parliament. In your view, very briefly, did it therefore take care of the context properly?
We left Parliament having approved the 2021-22 budget. And clearly, we had made a plea by a select committee of Parliament which was talking of stimulus package. Parliament did recommend that by design governments should be looking at import substitution, paying all areas of citizens, reduce on domestic areas, but also stop domestic borrowing. Stop borrowing from, because government is borrowing commercially. There's almost no more borrowing of concessional loans as it was from the ID and the World Bank, the ADB and the EU. Loans are both commercial, but on top of them, they even have a pre-finance additional charge. We have, so the point I'm trying to make, in difficult economic times, it is unfortunate that we have not come out right from the budget strategy, and they seem to say the previous wastages, the leakages, the hemorrhage, we are trying to fix them. None has been mentioned. So we don't even see, in 2003, as the president said, though he gave a different reference, that it's after talking to us in 2006 that we started making roads. In 2003, the NRM government decided that 23% of the national budget is going to be ring-fenced for fighting insecurity in the north. So it's until that investment, that big push was done in that effort. Of course, coupled with the Juba talks, that we started saving some money to do roads and energy. Before, it was not possible. This country was at civil war with itself for 20 years. And that's why, as an advocate of national dialogue and a person who is for proactive, preventive conflict prevention, I speak about dialogue because I know how much this country is bleeding for the last 36 years in the name of security. But whom are we fighting? Ourselves. So we spend a lot of money. We should have gone to the youth, should have gone to the skilling, should have gone to the industrial park. But the point I want to make here, related with, my other nickname was local content. I am for Bubu. And I regret the day this country liberalized and privatized everything. The reason why the president can proudly say we are entering middle income is because the GDP is growing. So there is per capita growth. But that per capita is not in my village. It's not in the hands of the youth. It is not in the women. It's just because there are big monies being made by the roads we are making by foreign companies, not Ugandan companies. The bankers, largely foreign, and the locals are dying. You know, when you celebrate the close of Crane Bank and Greenland Bank, it's not Sudira and Chigundu suffering. It is the Ugandan private sector. So we really need to see who owns this growth of the economy. It is not Ugandans.
All right.
So because of that, the entering of middle income is not a good story for a person in Kisoro and a person in Pader. It is only a confirmation that the haves are getting too much and the have-nots are not. And again, it creates another problem of a caste system, a country of those who have too much and those who do not know what to eat tomorrow. And therefore, I want to go back to the issue of policy remedies, because we know we are not performing in terms of revenue collection. So it's also wrong to excite people that we have enough money, we can do all this, we can do that. I would rather we go back to what worked before. What worked before was an economic model which was introduced as an industrial policy. So the Uganda Development Corporation. The Uganda Development Corporation, we did own it back and put it back by law. It is the industrial arm of this country. It will deal with import substitution. It will deal with export promotion. The old model gave us the good Uganda hotels. They were in every region, the 15 regions I talked of in the country. Only that we have forgotten we are a Uganda. And if we did that, I want to bring in the issue of the oil and gas money. $15 to $25 billion going to be expended in the next 5 to 7 years, including a refinery, the ECOP, the industrial park, which we acquired, the government acquired 18 years ago, but is still full of baboons in Hoima. These are the areas where government...
You also have the airport.
The airport is there. You know, I'm a procurement and logistics person. The airport is there without a single terminal. The runway is almost ready. But you cannot have any cold chain for exports. You don't have any terminal to receive goods. So, we should be putting money there. It is in the Vision 2040. It is in the NDP 3 that we should have another city, another airport. But when you see the investment, it is only the terminal to receive oil and gas. And this is where I want to plead with Petroleum Authority and National Oil Company and Minister of Energy, Ruth Nankabiro and Matia Kasaija. Please, don't make this oil and gas a project, a standalone project, as if we have had local content efforts and boo-boo. Where is the Minister of Trade and Industry in the refinery debate, in the industrial park debate, and all this business?
All right.
Where is the... We can use oil and gas money to revamp Uganda Airlines, Uganda Air Cargo, and the domestic flights. We can use the oil and gas money to revamp to put the 5-star hotels in Nwoya, where the oil is coming from, in Bulisa, in Pakwach, and Chikube. But the money is being spent in apartments in Kampala. We haven't seen a development down on the ground, apart from the roads I'm happy are there. I wish they were done 30% by low content. So I am saying, I don't want to come after 2 years and say, PAC, Auditor General, post-mortem. Can we right now do some corrections on how we look at the oil and gas sector as the policy provides? The oil and gas policy 2008 does mention we are going to use the finite oil and gas resource windfall for long-lasting non-oil and gas, including tourism, agriculture. And therefore, when I say that money could revamp our public transport, could revamp our air transport, could give us an industrial park, could give us a city, could give us high-end 5-star hotels for tourism, because tourism is more long-lasting. I don't know why we have decided under the guise of privatization and liberalization to allow a few commission agents who are working with foreign contractors who are coming with oil. And I'm not talking about Total and Sinuk. The contractors who are coming have found people in Uganda who are saying every company is a Ugandan company. That will not, local content must be defined, and can the president quickly push and the parliament for the local content law so that we can see the beneficiation like it was in South Africa, like it was in Botswana. Okay. We are about to come here and start lamentation that the oil and gas money has been lost, and yet we shouldn't discuss the other budget. PPPs, recoverable cost of the production sharing agreement, is part of the national budget. So can we look at holistically the economy and stop separating them? Because that's how we're allowing the corrupt commission agents to siphon money out of this country.
All right.
And the middle income will be not for Ugandan, but for those who are taking money out of it.
All right. Well, we don't want to take it for granted that everybody did watch the minister and is conversant with what the minister spoke about. The technical team has put a very brief clip together to just get some highlights from what the minister mentioned. Let's watch it and then we'll continue today's debate.
No new taxes will be introduced in financial 22-23. I wish to report that Parliament has made amendments to the various tax laws intended to simplify the laws, clarify previously ambiguous provisions, and close loopholes that may lead to revenue leakage, but not increasing taxes. The capacity of the Uganda Revenue Authority will be enhanced by recruiting and training staff, deploying appropriate equipment and ICT to enforce tax laws. The salaries of medical workers, scientists, and science teachers have been enhanced. To a figure which is about 900 billion. Uganda expects better service in return. Kankademu, tit for tat, tit for tat. Mpankwe, you give me, I give you. I have enhanced the sciences salaries by a figure which I mentioned. I expect to get a...
Well, there you are. That's just part of what the minister mentioned yesterday. Of course, there's many more things, but I'd like to start with you, Mr. Wanzala, on the whole issue of taxes. Part of what government has been saying from the time citizens were demanding that government comes out and does something about escalating price of commodities, especially fuel and what have you. Government, basically said we're not going to intervene because of what that will mean for the economy. However, in response, in the budget, we are not increasing taxes. Does that answer, the questions from the citizens?
I don't think it does, because, like we mentioned earlier, we can't behave, like I mentioned earlier, we can't behave like we are in a situation that is normal. This is a country that was very heavily affected by COVID-19. So many of our people, especially the constituency that I represent, lost jobs. Some of them took quite a long period of time without working. And then just at the point when we are returning to begin to do something, to reorganize ourselves, then we are confronted by the rise in prices, as informed by the tax regime and all. For us as young people, and this is well documented right from 2011, 2016, 2021, all these election cycles, we usually do what we call the National Youth Manifesto, and the issue of taxation has been a thorny issue. We noticed that even in instances where the government has introduced tax holidays for investors, our local people, especially the young people, are not considered, as investors. We think the term investors only applies to people that are not of our skin, or are not of the color of our skin, or the origins of this country, and that in itself is very disturbing. And that the issue of taxes affects most of the businesses, yep, that our young people engage in. But just before you come in, Gabriel, I wanted to mention that yes, we welcome the positive gesture that the government has made in choosing to stay the whole issue of increasing taxation. But I believe that that is not enough. I think a good government that cares about its people would look at subsidizing, the cost of the key determinant which you talked about, fuel.
All right. And government has given its reasons for not doing that. But, talking about taxes,
Yes.
government has actually been talking quite a bit about taxes in the last couple of months and incentives because of the famous or infamous coffee deal. And one of the things government has insisted on is that locals can also benefit from these, incentives because they exist by law. They've also stated, and it's stated in the minister's, budget speech, that for the local, entities, the local entrepreneurs and businesses, government availed money through UDB and other areas, for them to benefit, but also the multiple, schemes that government has around Yoga and what have you. This should have helped, these entities to weather this storm.
Gabriel, it is one thing. It is one thing saying, or even stating it in the documents, in the budget, in the policies, and all these things. It is another thing, actually, getting these issues or these promises or these proclamations actualized on the ground. You and I know that a lot has been talked about Uganda being so good at coming up with these ideas, but when it comes to resourcing the actual implementation, that's where the devil lies. You talked about the different wealth creation schemes that the government has put in place. I saw in the budget that about 1.7 trillion collectively has been earmarked for these different wealth creation initiatives, most of which are supposed to benefit the young people. But whether or not that actually happens remains a question, because you and I know that this country faces a big problem of corruption. That we for example, we had the Youth Livelihood Program. I'm glad it is still within the budget, although with a significantly slashed allocation from 71.
Well, a lot of money is going to the parish development model.
Well, again, yes, a lot of money is going to the parish development model, but then that in itself also has it has operational issues.
And we will get to PDM.
Yes.
Yes.
Most of these, they have framework design issues, one, and then two, they have also operational issues. I will tell you for a fact that, for example, in the previous financial year, money was allocated about 7 or thereabouts billion for setting up, to finance the setting up of circles at parish level. But this money came, I think, a few days to the end of the financial year. And then we are talking about, investing more into, I mean, when we talk about, financing development, we need to make it priority, even when it comes to the delivery of, let's not have these promised and then they are bedeviled. And even actually, you'll even also notice that before, now the budget has been passed, before we get to September, when we begin to think about, the development of the budget for the next year, between now and then, you will be surprised that at the number of supplementary budgets that we do.
The minister stated
that we do get that eats into the chunk of the money.
This time they are going to be disciplined. They are going to, this issue of supplementary, and if it does come up, it will stay under the 3%.
And yes, the minister talked about fiscal discipline, but you and I know that fiscal discipline is not.
If we could just go back a little to the issue on taxes. Yes, many people were hoping that taxes would be reduced, especially on certain commodities. But the minister emphasized
Yes,
That
especially
in order,
fuel.
Yes, in order for the economy to, continue moving the way they're projected, but also to get the money to fund all these things, they need to have these taxes collected.
And
What
I
effect-
believe government can have enough money to fund all these programs and still subsidize the cost of fuel for the citizens of this country. I mean, other countries are doing it.
Well, and,
what
and,
is so
and
special
yes,
about?
and yes, government has also reacted to that, and they've said, well, what significant difference have you seen in the countries that have had those kinds of interventions? And some of them have backtracked on those interventions. But let's bring it to the Honorable Mukitale.
You see, we are being trapped, diverse on obscurantism, into downstream issues. Taxation in terms of figures without tax policy and industrial policy is a diversionary issue. You're dealing with symptoms and not the cause. You see, COVID, government parked most vehicles. It was a very good time to say, divest all these individual vehicles for for big people in government and invest heavily in public transport, and it will be delivered in 2 years.
I hope you've realized that even new ones are still being bought
That
to
is
this
an
day.
industrial policy where you say 5 companies, you're going to make us buses, you're going to make us trucks for commercial agriculture, and government is going to give you, and again, let me as a procurement person bring what we missed out. We are losing 60% of our corruption money through procurement. Every vote has a buyer. That's a very bad procurement practice. In areas, best practice is that high value procurement is centralized. So the debate of even the speaker buying which type of car does not arise. So you would know there is public transport, one, and then all these other important procurement, whether it is stationary, the common user items are centralized. And when you do that, how does it support BUBU and how does it support government participation, industrialization through UDC? You say the 5 companies which are going to supply computers must have a production line in Uganda. So taxation is not just for the sake of raising money through import duty, of importing unnecessary things in the country. You would rather bring down the taxation, but allow an assembling line of these countries which will create more jobs in the country. You have bulk negotiation, you get the best price. All this we are missing out as if there are no people who went to school of economics, as if there are no people who have done best practice in procurement, supply chain and logistics. It's because they are people benefiting out of these leakages. So procurement is a mess. I was raising earlier the debate, does government want to go back into business? Why are we told government cannot do business when ESCOM and Umeme was owned by government? So it's an insult to the citizens of this country. You know, so can we look at these areas of policy first? So I would be, before I degenerate into discussing so much the tax amendments and just the financial allocation, the sweeteners, I want to first listen the bigger narrative of the policy dimension, because it is the area of policy, it's the area of planning which can inform whether we have decided as a country that there are areas government must do as a security for the future of the country. Affordable power, cheap power is a government security matter. The issue of the Uganda air cargo and domestic flight is national pride, but also a security matter. But to say, because we have privatization, let an individual go and hire from Paris, from Russia, planes to do our air cargo, yet Amin left us with air cargo, Amin left us with Uganda Airline, Amin left us with plane going to Arua, to Karamoja, to the west, to Masindi. So the issue is, can we have a dialogue on owning this economy? Okay. And that dialogue comes through the question of the UDC. So how much money has been given to UDC?
Okay.
How much money has been given to UDB? Because until we get long-term finance which is affordable. Until government stop domestic borrowing by competing with me and you, Wanzala, in taking treasury bills and bonds, and therefore setting a price. Government is currently the price setter of high interest in banks because we are competing with it there.
We're going to come
areas upstream. I would want to expend my energy
before we come to the downstream.
Than seeing the change, the change given to Paris development model when there's budget still in the car. The budget is in the central government.
Okay,
the budget
Honorable, we're going to talk about parish development model because that's a big one. You know, for the 2022-2023 financial year. We should be going for a break, but before we do, I'd like us to, just say one more thing on this taxation issue. URA has a target, about 25 trillion shillings. Do you find this achievable? I will start with you, Mr. Wanzala.
Well,
and in the same budget, he did mention the shortfall for the just ending financial year, almost $1 trillion shillings, when we talk about the performance. Yeah,
I will just make a simple submission on that one, Gabriel, that I think the target is achievable, if only. I think the citizens of this country do not have a problem with paying taxes. I can guarantee you that. The problem we have is we don't see where those taxes. If URA or the powers that be can show us that actually the money that they collect through the different, and URA needs to just get creative. There are so many untapped areas of revenue that they haven't touched, but that has everything. I mean, probably they're also scared of going there because they know that maybe they will not be able to get, because people are scared of committing their money to a government that, like Honorable mentioned, is so full of thieves, for lack of a better word, that this money is not going to do what it is intended to do. So if we can deal with the issue of corruption.
All right. Well, it was mentioned in both speeches, the State of the Nation address and in this budget speech, the issue of corruption. Honorable,
it is a big one.
All the sectors the president and the budget language speaks about, the literature speaks about, do not add up to 10 trillion of the budget. All the areas, the innovation, the tourism, the agriculture, value addition, does not add up to 10 trillion. I have already said 18 point is debt servicing. The other money is security and governance. Of course, what they have done this time by adding education and health, so that it is higher than defense, but actually security is higher than our education, and security is higher than health. And then you'll find that because of that,
that's because we've moved to a program-based budget.
Those are sweeteners. The point I was trying to make, the money put in the Paris development model is change. I talked of Article 178 of the which said that Uganda should now have regional government. So can we send our budget to regions? People in Wogisu will find the money for Ududa there. Right. People in Karamoja should find the money there. And the moment you develop this budget,
I think yes.
Kenya had a constitutional amendment.
I think I've kept you away from parish development model for too long. Let's go for a break at this point. When we return, let's go to parish development model. Please stay tuned, because after this break, the debate continued.
The first edition of the PPDA Business Expo is here. Join us from the 8th to the 10th of July 2022 at Kolo Independence Grounds. We will unveil the annual government procurement plan and awards. Come network with 35,000 certified businesses. Attend the AGP training and engagement with key decision makers. Together, let's exhibit, network, collaborate, and grow. This message is brought to you by PPDA in partnership with FIPRO, PSFU, Isuzu, Fireworks Advertising, and
CTV. Don't blink.
3 words: convenience, passion, and pride. Introducing the KCCA app made for you to interact with the best football club in Uganda, giving you the latest news, transfers, membership options, merchandise online shop, match ticket bookings, and fan zone instant messaging. To download the beta app, go to Google Play Store on your Android and search for KCFC. Download the app, sign up, and voila, you're in. Yes, the app is only available for Android users. iOS users, we are coming soon. The KCCFC app, inspired by you, made for you.
CTV is now on StarTimes. You can now catch all your favorite programs, our daily comprehensive news bulletins, and so much more on StarTimes channel number 248. Stay tuned for a world of endless possibilities. CTV. Don't blink.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with us here on the Big Debate here on CTV. Would like to thank you for always supporting our programming here at the station. Today on the Big Debate, we're looking at the budget speech delivered by the Minister of Finance yesterday on behalf of the President. The budget stands at 48.1 trillion shillings. URA has a target of collecting about 25 trillion shillings. We did leave the first segment of the show just looking at whether this target is achievable for Uganda Revenue Authority. In fact, Honorable, you did not give your answer to that question very briefly so that I can continue what I am saying. Can URA collect that 25 trillion shillings?
If I'm a tax agent, and paying taxes is noble. But I'm only saying the bigger picture, that the tax policy, supporting the industrial policy is more important than just targeting the quick import duty and a few people, the usual suspect, the salary earners who pay as you earn and a few taxes. So we really need to broaden our tax base. I agree. But for a Frisian to give you milk, you must feed it.
Okay.
So my debate is more than just saying, give me more milk if you are not making that. But the point I was trying to make earlier is that whereas the Paris development model is a good idea.
Honorable, I'm going to come to you on that.
Yes.
I'm going to come to you on that.
You want to exhaust the taxation issue?
Yes.
So
I want us to close that tax
So
issue.
the point I'm trying to make is that I would be very happy if we are doing a tax policy which discourages imports, which promotes local production, which promotes exports, which encourages imports of raw materials which are going to add value in this country, the agro implements, and the machinery.
All right.
That would be a very good policy. But also, I am not aware of a country which has attracted high investment because of tax exemption. Tax exemptions, the beneficiaries, largely the so-called investor has a local person who is benefiting out of that tax exemption.
And there are many studies to that effect. Well, we needed to close off that taxation issue before we move to the other big one that our guests seem to be itching to talk about. But I will introduce again our guests just in case you did not catch their names. The Honorable Stephen Mukitale Birahwa, former MP for Bulisa. He served in Parliament. How many years was it?
Sweet 15 years.
15 years, so 3 terms in Parliament.
Yes.
And,
But of servant leadership.
Servant leadership, yeah. Yes. He is a member of the NRIM. He did serve as chairperson of the National Economy Committee and also sat on the Budget Committee. Other guest, Mr. Wanzala Martin, Executive Director at African Youth Development Link. Well, parish development model, and a huge amount of money being committed to that, ₦1 trillion shillings. In the previous budget, about 200 or so billion shillings, where each parish was getting 17 million shillings. There are mixed reactions on how that money was used, but now each parish, the 10,500 parishes, to be receiving 100 million shillings, and this really being, you know, one of the major programs that government is rolling out in order to deal with the issue of poverty at a time when more Ugandans, at least from the statistics coming from Uganda Bureau of Statistics, more Ugandans have slipped into poverty. Numbers increasing from about 8 million the previous year to about 12 million Ugandans. Your thoughts on the parish development model? I will start with you, Mr. Wanzala, then I will come to Honorable Mukitale.
Thank you, Gabriel. As I stated earlier, the parish development model is just like the YLP that we had before.
Youth Livelihood Program.
Youth Livelihood Program. WEP, Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program. Now we have the presidential initiative on wealth and job creation.
One of the ministers warned us about looking at parish development model, you know, like these other wealth creation initiatives, because for it, you know, it doesn't have a lifespan of it's coming for 5 years and what have you, has got to be renewed. This is a major, you know, program that government is going to use for development for the foreseeable future.
Well, that remains to be seen, but because, you know, like I mentioned previously, some of those nice things have been said about even, you know, other programs that have been in place to help, you know, our citizens get out of the pit of poverty. But like I mentioned, I think parish development model is a good one. It is a good initiative, and it is a positive that government is thinking about helping the people to get out of poverty, to, you know, promote collaboration, work together, and all this. But like I mentioned earlier, it also has its own, you know, issues. One, for example, from a youth perspective, the design of the model is that it focuses, for example, on, but before I even talk about the design, again, one other positive is that it has quotas for the different
for youth, for women.
Youth, women,
yes,
and all that. I think there's a 30% demarcation for each of those different categories. Again, whether or not this translates into reality is another matter, because I was talking about the design where the model targets households. It is a household model, and so that means that they are bound to target heads of households, and in that case we have very few young people that can, you know, easily say that I am the head of this household. But again, like I mentioned, that since there is a demarcation, it's welcome. But whether or not now this translates down to the actual person is a completely different matter. And you warned me not to, basing on what the president said, not to compare this to other programs. But I can't avoid the temptation to do so, because at the end of the day, we know that this model is going to still work within the same context as the other programs. And like I mentioned, that most of these programs much as they come with nice ideas, they come with good intentions, at the end of the day, these resources fail to trickle down to the actual person, the actual young person on the ground, because most of the officials that are in charge of these programs end up, like Honorable mentioned, through the different procurement processes, most of this money disappears along the way, and it doesn't, trickle down to that. These are the same challenges we're having with the recovery of
the minister
money allocated in
gave
the
you comfort in that direction. He's putting more money to fighting corruption, strengthening the judiciary, the police.
That's the song we have
prisons.
sung over and over and over. I mean, I can't remember a time when especially every after an election cycle, when the president has not often, in the previous, for example, term, the president called it
Hakuna Mchezo.
Hakuna Mchezo, meaning no, this time we are not playing, but look where we are. We keep rotating in cycles, and we always come back to the same problem.
All right.
Because we can't, like one wise man said, we can't continue attacking the problem using the same methods, using the same tactics. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over.
Expecting different results.
That's the definition of insanity. And I don't think that is the definition of who we are as Ugandans.
All right. Parish development model. And are we approaching this thing the correct way? And will it deliver, the Ugandans, especially the ones in subsistence? And the minister says this budget is dedicated to taking them out of subsistence into the money economy, but also carrying Ugandans out of poverty.
I have already said that we cannot come out of poverty because the gross is not owned by Ugandans. It is expropriated to the owners of the capital, the multinationals and the foreign companies who, since liberalization, own this country. I did coin the NRM retention project in 1995 constitutional promulgation. And I can see, as a political scientist and as an NRM, which is a revolution, NRM is not a party, I can see NRM is moving ahead of everybody. Our party structures were not doing very well in the last election, including the LOCs, which used to help us a lot. The army was overworked. I can see this time around the parish development model is going to revive our government structures, the NRM revolution. And I'm not saying the party. For those who are naive, continue calling it a party. So the revolution is on in terms of power retention. And if the president goes around, he will find some structures which are very good. Now, if you want to talk about, I'm a student of rural development and community development. And right from the days of Suruma, when he wanted the parish development model, I was very much for it, for financial inclusion and other reasons. If you want to know what works, you go to Kalangala. The specialized producer cooperative, which borrows from the plan for modernization of agriculture, which we deliberately decided to kill. Like the BAT, though I hate the tobacco and the crop and its monoculture against food security. It has advisory, it has the inputs, it has the crop finance, it has the value addition, it has the transport, it has the marketing. Uganda NRM talked long ago about the zoning and enterprise selection.
That zoning was very problematic.
I am going to the 15 regions of Uganda. Each region in this country can produce something. We are importing a lot of vegetable oil related, palm oil and related. But Lango, Acholi, and West Nile can produce a lot of cornflowers and those related. So they need a specialized producer cooperative. They need a model of a Kalangala, which will make them as landowners have an equity, they have a meal, and they will get a lot of money without necessarily, this is the problem with trying to do a Paris model, you do not focus and concentrate. So what Uganda is again missing, what we missed in NADS on operational creation, prosperity for all, you give this one 2 pigs, another one 2 oranges, another one 20, 20 mangoes off season, you give the Bateso wrong mangoes and oranges. Yet if you worked with Britannia, the types of Britannia, they would, from the inputs, you go to Kalangala, you go to BAT model, you go to Mukwano, who is doing vegetable oil, sunflower. They have the right input, you know. When you have the
even
right
the sugar
input,
canes, yes.
Yes, you look at the Lugazi and the Kachira model. I worked for Kinyara, which was in my neighborhood. They had the right inputs. They gave them tractors. They gave the crop finance. And
because if I'm going to buy from you, I'm going to ensure that what I'm going to get is good.
Sugar millers, like the ones in Bunyoro, we don't have shares. Bunyoro lost shares. Outgrowers, we don't have shares. The managers, we don't have shares. So the whole thing becomes foreign. So even if you did 10 refineries of sugar in Uganda to benefit from them, the Ugandans are not benefiting. It is for those investors. And I don't know why government chooses to make these investors unpopular against this. So can we go back to investors who are not land grabbers, investors who look at land as equity and the sale of citizen? And I hope that's happening in Atiaka and the northern industries, because that's what it was in Busoga before. But now you find citizens do not have any share. The old UDC, government would either own 51% and the others 49%. But for decision making today, let's say, can the investor own 51% and allow the citizens, the host community, the land owners, the outgrowers to own that? So I want to say, Chigezi is producing Highland tea. Give them as a region to specialize on that. So what you're trying to look for in the Paris model, in NADS, in operational creation, in the days of our cooperatives of Bunyoro growers, of Masaka grower, of Ugisu, our parents paid taxes. There was no UPE. People went to school. And this business of government giving everything is also wrong leadership, because to start promising everybody, Muzare Mokanye, we shall vaccinate, we shall give you, is also wrong. And that's why the president is disappointed that UPE 27 years, the completion rate is very poor. And you people, why are you collecting fees? But I am telling you, our parents who grew cotton, who are in Bunyoro growers, also had the money for our uniform, for our books. So what's happening as you continue trumpeting free education, RDC, this or arrested teachers, children are eating lunch. When they don't eat lunch, they don't come back. So can we allow citizens, can we stop this politics of rights, and privileges? The constitution talks of duties and responsibilities. So can we provide leadership and start telling citizens, wait, parents, can you provide lunch? Even if it means contributing some maize and some beans. So let's stop hiding our poverty in instructions and political pronouncements. Can the parents, when Bitamazire was launching, and those were there, the FX Lubangas, the UPE, I was not in parliament, but as a leader in Bunyoro, I was giving the stakeholder responsibilities, those booklets, I gave them in all my neighborhood, by then in the Masindi district. But when you say you can come to school without uniform, you can come to school without lunch, then we have lost what education is supposed to be. It's not just numerous and literal. And that's why I'm saying, again, on policy and delivery mechanism, let government disengage where it cannot. The education in Africa and in Uganda was not founded by government. Yeah, it was the missionaries.
Honorable
That's why Kibuli is doing well.
Honorable Mukitale,
can we allow
just
the
a second
church?
there. Just a second there.
Yes.
We're going to go to education, and you probably are prompting me into some of
Yes.
the topics. But
Education is a game changer.
Just so that we close off on the issue of the parish development model. It is a model that government has chosen, and the allocation has been made. And come 1st July, this budget is going to be implemented.
Like
with
we
that
we did
in mind,
Operation Restoration.
yes, with
like
that
we did Prosperity
with
for
that
All,
in mind,
like we did Entandikwa,
with that in
Youth
mind,
Livelihood, like we did UWEP.
yes, with
What
that
is
in
the
mind,
performance?
with that in mind, how do we then get the best out of the parish development model? You know, if I could
Mr.
start with
Wanzala has already asked a question. Unless you are mad, why do you want to continue doing something you know does not work? In procurement, we talk about proven performance, even in policy. Why am I referring to success stories? The UDC, the Uganda Cooperative Movement. Why am I referring to the Kalangala program? Why am I referring to the old? The reason why these children of these, used to call them Lugwaras, who used to come in Kachira, their children are PhDs, they are doctors, they are engineers, because the program was inclusive. It took care of the children of the skin cutters. But when you come with these new investors and the Paris model, we have created a caste system. Those who will go on government sponsor will be those of children goes to Gayaza and then you remain with our poor who went to UPE, never qualifying anyway to get government. So it is we must break that caste system which is hated in India. Let what makes me come from Bulisa, win primary national mathematics 79 from Bulisa, you know, and another one comes from Kisoro, another one comes from Napak, another one comes from Kidera, and they meet because the country systems provide for competition and merit. This country lost long ago competition and merit, and as an advocate of national dialogue, I would want a system which brings unity and diversity.
All right.
That Bunyoro will bring, Bukedi will bring, Lango will bring, Teso will bring, West Nile will bring, as Kigezi and Mbarara, which is bringing most, also brings.
All right. Mr. Wanzala, as we close on the parish development model, you know, what can be done to get the most out of, even when, you know, both of you seem to express that you do not believe this thing is going to, you know, to deliver what the minister is promising?
Well, it will deliver, but the magnitude of what it will deliver is what matters. I think, like he mentions, and like I mentioned earlier, if we still go on doing the same thing over and over again,
are there areas that can be,
we shall continue getting the same results. But going forward,
in order to get,
going forward, I think I already mentioned one of the areas that we need to be serious on and stop, you know, just giving it rhetoric and actually, you know, walk the talk. The fight against corruption. That's the elephant in the room. I think we need to. I don't know what the president or whoever it is, the office of the IGG and all. I don't know what they will do to put an end to that scourge that leads to wastage, as the Honourable just mentioned. Yes, that is number one. But also, too, I think we also need to invest in popularizing or in getting people to understand, because most of these programs are bedeviled with issues of unawareness. Most of the people for which the programs are intended do not even have an idea what it's all about. And at the end of the day, most of our politicians on the ground milk these programs for political capital. They misinform and all these things, and they use they try as much as possible to milk as much political capital from it as possible. So we need to invest in awareness raising and build the capacity of our young people and the other categories of the population to be able to benefit from this. But also, most importantly, I think we need to create a conducive environment for the people to benefit from the program by, for example, affording or enabling access to factors of production for young people. For example, young people don't have access to land, which is an important factor for production, and which is a big enabler for the success of this model.
Okay, let's switch to a clip of some of the things that the president mentioned yesterday after the minister had delivered the speech, the budget speech on the president's behalf.
Killed me when I have worked. I have boasted a bit about the achievements of the NRM. Okay, Simirana, say, didn't I tell you? Don't you see how much better off we are? And against our appeals. And I demand that all these people get out of the wetlands unconditionally. We don't have to negotiate. As long as Uganda is producing enough food, there is no problem we cannot solve. But the danger to the food is number one, some laziness. This 39% of the homes who are not, whom we want to, under parish model, to say, please join the money economy and produce for the stomach and for the pocket. When we introduced UPE in 1997, the idea was everybody to go to school, universal education. And the reason why these children drop out is because of the school charges. I've been telling you about this so many times, begging, talking, as if I want people to come and work on my farm or do me a favor.
Well, there the president talking about UPE, and it seemed like the president was surprised that the number of people that do not make it from, that do not make it to do PLE, but also the dropout rate there, but also the staggering difference between those who enroll for primary one and those that actually end up crossing to secondary school. Millions dropping off. If we could talk about the education very briefly, because we're basically out of time, but there are a number of things I'd like us to touch on, and let's try and make it brief. I will start with Mr. Wanzala. On education, the minister says, we're going to give 4.1 trillion shillings because education is an equalizer for human beings. And he says, they're going to look at staffing gaps, training of teachers, continuous assessment, inspection, operationalization of a couple of, colleges and what have you. And he believes that this investment will, make the education sector the kind of education sector that will deliver the kind of people that should be growing the economy. Your view on education and the way it's being handled, especially by this new budget?
Thanks, Gabriel. I think the investments or the areas that you've mentioned that the minister has earmarked for investment under education, they are good. But are they the priority? Are they the pressing needs that the education sector needs to invest in? I think for far too long we've talked about, we've heard the cry of investment in motivation of the teachers.
They should have been going on a strike today. And the Minister of Public Service did come out to tell them not to go on a strike. Government is going to respond to their issues by Friday.
Yes. So I don't think the issue is more investment in training. That's good, but I think the more pressing issue is motivating those that we have trained, those that are in the service, making them, be comfortable to deliver a quality service, and that precisely speaks to the reason why we have more and more of our teachers either abandoning the profession or leaving the public schools that used to perform very well and going into either the private sector, or some of them, for those that are within the category of the people that I represent, leaving the country to go and seek greener pastures in the Middle East. So I think we need to invest in that, but also too, coming out of COVID, you and I know that there was an upsurge of teenage pregnancy, and with it, child marriages, and we reopened the schools. We had so many children that were pregnant or that were nursing babies that needed to be,
the government
absorbed back
information
into the system.
And policy on that was also quite confusing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the point, that the policy framework for that is confusing, because I don't think there is a deliberate mechanism from government to fully absorb in a way that makes it very comfortable for them to come back in and study in an environment that doesn't stigmatize them. Children are pregnant, having children bearing children. That is one, and then two, child mothers, yes, and so some of them have to come back with the pregnancy. We now having to deal with the double burden of the pregnancy and the stigma, but then also too, there are those that are coming back with their kids. So how does the budget address the issue of creating an enabling environment for these young mothers to come back into, because the majority when it comes to the school going
the
to
rural areas, yes, especially. Honorable Mukitale, on education
from
and
a
the way we plan for
demographic
it.
angle, Ugandan population is going to hit 100 million in the next 10 years. And if we do not put our act together, we are having a looming revolution of the landless and the jobless. And unless we do...
is it 100 million in 10 years?
You see your population growth. You are now almost 50.
I think 2050 is when expected to be 100 million.
It's only by 2022-23. You look at your population projections. Uganda is...
we're supposed
we
to
are very
have
fertile, first of all.
We're supposed to have a minister on the show today. Unfortunately, the
We are
minister got
we are
called
very
in.
fertile.
I wanted to ask about the population issue, because it seems like part of this, getting into the middle income is because it seems like the number of Ugandans was reduced somewhere. So that it seems like, because this is an average. But anyway, yes, the
Britain
population
is a very small country, but with a very big population. But what we need to pursue right now, why I say 10 to 12 years, is we need what we call the demographic dividend. Is how you turn the quantity, the population numerical number, into quality strengths. So you transit people. Instead of everybody being a peasant on land, they become carpenters, they become plumbers, they become engineers, ICT people, tourism people. So when you have that demographic transition and dividend, and the game changer is education. So you use the education system to change all these grandchildren who have become landless, to secure their future. You must make sure that they don't have to depend on the land being grabbed right now in Bunyoro because of sugarcane and oil. So that even if I come in the future Bunyoro, on the 10th floor of an industrial Bunyoro, of Chigezi, of Lango, you can actually, and this has been done. By the way, Korea started borrowing for the private sector. These Samsungs you see, all those people, it is government which borrowed for the private sector, because it's private sector which creates jobs. So on the question of education, I'm relating it with population, because without having vocationalized and turning the education system purely into skilling, aware with the president's realization that after all, most of our people do not reach university. By the way, my earlier study was that only 3% of Ugandans who joined UPE reached tertiary. But people thought I was making political statement. It is true. Only 3% of those who started UPE 27 years ago reached some level of a college, whether certificate, diploma, or something. And what does that mean? The Rasolas who are increasing in Karamoja dropped out of UPE. And therefore they also missed USE. So why don't you make agriculture compulsory? I am agree with the change of the curriculum. A few, but there are areas I'm not even comfortable, because if everybody did agriculture by P7, you would at least know what to do when you drop at home. But remember, don't even promise, and that's why I have a problem with Paris model. Paris model is assuming everybody is going to have some land. Please, can we stop that lie to citizens? The point I am making, the children of our children will not have land. If my grandfather had 100 acres and we are 10, it means I had 10.
If you split it equally, each
my
of you got 10.
grandfather had 100. My father, they were 10.
They gave
my
you,
father
they
had
gave
10.
your father 10.
And we are 10.
Split it equally,
acre.
you get 1
and
acre.
If I have 10 children, they have less than M3. It means one plot, 25 decimals, smaller than this big compound, is for my 4 children. So the future, to start promising everybody through Paris model that will do so, the next generation may not relate. And by the way, in society,
So in your view,
peasantry
skills
means you are living on land using rudimentary tools on farming. So sometimes this word peasants is also not true, because more people are now on Rolex, on a border, because we have not had a deliberate industrial policy and education system to say, can we have more plumbers, more carpenters, more engineers? By the way, even those who are having problems in extension of labor in some of these countries like the Arab world, is because they are going as maids. Who tells you plumbers are suffering in Saudi Arabia? Who tells you engineers, mercenaries are suffering? They are not. That's why the Filipinos, in the extension of labor, it is deliberate. You can train more nurses and teachers of Uganda who are being abused by low pay and segregated now by only paying science teachers. You can export them en masse, but with good contracts of government, of science, of English teachers, of mathematics teachers, of Ugandan nurses. That's why I am concerned. If you know you have a problem. So Ethiopia, why do you think it's doing well? Diaspora remittances. When they return back, they come with capital, they come with technology transfer, they are exposed. So when you hear Ethiopia running banks without foreign banks, doing construction without foreign construction, because they went out as externalized labor and they have come back as experts. By the way, Rwanda, because they went to different countries, they have been in Canada, they have been in Europe, they are coming back also with that. So the countries like the Nepalese you talk about, you know, the Filipinos, they are getting, their economies are benefiting from the diaspora remittances. In Uganda, what you call diaspora remittances is by accident. Their Cholis and Northerners ran away because of a bad government. The others ran away because of bad government. The others, when NRM came, they ran away. When they come with their money, we are getting. Bank of Uganda is very happy that we are getting. Did you ever invest in their going out? Did you even help them to get visas? So can we really start thinking for this country and in the interest of the children? So I want to announce to Ugandans that your grandchildren land for agriculture, and therefore can we do cities big time, and we do vertical development, and we invest in human settlement, organized low income vertical. All these bungalows in this Naguru could fit on very few flats, and some land would be saved and consolidated for future of industrial parks, and for also leave some land in agriculture. In America and Europe, 1 to 2% in agriculture feeds the whole country. Why do we think everybody? So can we stop in my government and in my country called Uganda to start deceiving our children that everybody is going to own land? It's going to be something of the past tense. In Western Europe, after the World War Depression, what did they do? People left villages, went to concentration camps, called them IDPs of the North. And that's why I disagreed with my northern brothers when I said in 2006, in the JMC and the Northern Uganda Development Program, can we develop these IDPs into good towns and we consolidate our land? But the fear was that my NRM was not trusted that will be grab all the land. That was a very big chance to take off because Northern Uganda had lost 20 years. It was a chance for them to catch up using the IDPs which already had water, had electricity, had security, had education centers, had health as growth centers, organized fiscal planning, organized human settlement, and low-cost housing, and so everybody would now be going to the north. Not, by the way, let me warn you, not to go to the north as land grabbers. The northern land, the customary land, and if titled, would be equity into investment.
All right.
So whoever would be going to invest there would find consolidated big chunks of land, good for invest. But please don't go there as land grabbers saying you want to own the land.
Okay.
Land is equity. They can be shareholders of investment using their land.
All right. I'm going to come back to something else that the president spoke about, and that is on the environment. That's if time allows. I'd like us to just talk very briefly, tying it in with education. The minister spoke about the issue of paying of scientists. It has been an issue. It was a government pledge. You know, the teachers have gone on strike because scientists, you know, have been promised an increment. What of the teachers who do the arts or humanities, like some people like to call them? And yes, if you could start us off on that one very briefly, though.
Yeah, I honestly have a problem with what you called a government promise of paying science teachers more than those from the humanities field, because that in itself, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I have nothing against our brothers and sisters who did science, but that actually in itself seems to suggest that these people are living and breathing a different kind of air. They are consuming different kind of commodities.
The president says they are more useful to the
Useful to
development
what?
of the country. They're those who come up with innovations that spur, you know, the development of a country.
Uganda is not a scientific economy, if I may call it that. Most of the things that we do are actually science-based, and that actually, in fact, I'm glad you brought that. That brings me to talk about.
Can I add the word indigenous? Indigenous knowledge.
Absolutely. So, and that brings me to talk about something I wanted to speak about, the investment in the arts and creative sector, or the creative arts and sports. That is where most of our young people are today are benefiting, and the sector of sports and creative arts has enormous potential for employment and all. And if you just scan across the globe, you'll see that this is a multi-million business, a multi-billion
It goes
business.
into, yes,
absolutely
obscene figures.
Some of the richest people, young people that we know, the Ronaldos, the Messis, the Kylian Mbappes of this world, are making a killing from what we are saying is a useless sector. You know, so I honestly don't agree with the president. I'm sorry, the president on that one.
You're sorry for your conscience.
The president says, "Leave my scientists."
You see, when I went to Makerere, we used to do what we call labor and industry and power planning. You don't start by paying remuneration. We have an education system. UPE for 27 years and USE for. So are we admitting that was a white elephant? It didn't give us scientists. So scientists are made in school. So when you introduced UP and USE, why didn't you emphasize? So basically you are now saying the end result of UPE 27 years and 20 years of USE, Uganda did not churn out. So our education system has been irrelevant, has disoriented people. The public investment has been a wastage. To make matters worse, the president has even confirmed that in Karamoja only 6% can complete, and in the whole Uganda, the whole average is only 38. So it is an indictment on the whole education system, irrelevant. It has not helped us. My first submission before the president in an NRM caucus in Africana in 2006 was that our education system is disabling. He even stood up and clapped for me. He didn't know me. It was my first. And speaking from it, I was not even sitting in front. Because I said, by the time a student leaves S4, he does not even want to go in the cow dung and the milk. By the time he goes to HSC, he wants the mother, whom is not helping in the farm, to sell and buy him a necktie and a shoe. So that's how our education system has been, a white collar. And that's why from the beginning, my first submission in NRM caucus was vocationalize the education system. Let us do more skilling right from UPE. It is now being mentioned now, but we have lost so many years. No wonder we don't have. So what's happening? A few scientists are being grabbed by our neighbors. You will be surprised. The big people, I will not mention names, who went to Kenya for treatment. Dr. Lule is a Ugandan. Go to South Africa. Ugandan doctors. Go to Kigali here. Our scientists are there. Because...
So the answer is, pay them better.
No, that is symptomatic. That is downstream. I always want to deal with upstream issues. If we invested, how much did we put in laboratories? How much do we put in primary education in terms of science? And by the way, we have this exam-oriented education system, passing exams. COVID has indicted us and said, please, stop it, you know? And we are not, after COVID, we have forgotten. So can we really make education that is relevant? I wish agriculture was compulsory from, it should be done more in primary. I wish health science, not biology. My understanding when I went to S1 was that if you want to be a doctor, you do biology. But if you want to be a good nutritionist, a good hygiene person and sanitation, you do health science. Health science is basically what brings primary health care. Good hygiene, good nutrition, good ventilation, good, you know, and everybody's studying biology. Biology is for those who want to become medicine. So can we have an education system which by P4, P5, P6, people have some orientation? Those who want to go into ICT, those who want to go into food value addition, those who want to do agriculture value addition, right. Those who want to be bookkeepers. Bookkeeping should be compulsory. Bookkeeping should be compulsory because whatever profession, you need some bookkeeping.
Okay, all right.
So these are areas where we have had a public investment in the form of UPE and USE, but unfortunately in a relevant and disorienting education system.
Okay. Well, the president talked about environment, and yes, he did talk about degradation of the environment, talking to the people who were in the wetlands, whether it was by government policy that you found yourself there or you got yourself into the wetland, you know, asking that those people be removed from the wetlands. But to give it more context, the minister talked about, you know, climate change and what that means, you know, for the country, for the budget, and the interventions that they're going to have around that. I know that there are big moves on, you know, the role that young people can play in dealing with the climate issues that we're having. The way, you know, we're responding to environment and broadening it to climate change. You know, what can we harness from the budget?
I think I do agree that climate change is a big issue, and it is one that threatens both the present and the future. And by the present and the future, I mean young people, because for so long young people are talked about in the future, but we're also here already. So this problem affects us today, but it's also bound to affect us. The decisions that we make and the decisions that our elders do make, those in policy making processes that do make on our behalf, do affect, they will have long-term ramifications for us. And so one of the roles that young people can play in terms of both conserving the environment and mitigating and addressing the issue of climate change is one, we beyond us being able to contribute by doing our everyone has to play their role first of all at your personal level. Do your small that's why I commented about the natural environment that we have at the beginning. This is dealing with climate change. Before we even go to the big things, this is the first step that we can do, greening our surroundings. As part of the programs that we do back at African Youth Development Link and by extension within the youth movement, we try as much as possible to encourage in the different beneficiaries that we work with to at least plant a tree and keep updating each other on the progress where we are. And then two, young people can do that, but then also two, young people can create awareness around what this issue is. Young people can collect data around young people are data providers, but also data collectors. We can collect data around what the magnitude of this issue is all about. But then, lastly, young people are an important contributor to policy, and so they shouldn't be ignored in decision-making processes that. That relate to climate change. So we need to budget for young people's inclusion to participate meaningfully. It's not just about including them, adding them onto, but
meaningful participation,
ensuring that their participation has an influence on the outcome.
Honorable Mukitale, increasingly we're hearing the president making very strong comments when it comes to environment and conservation of the environment. The budget does touch on those issues. Are we going in the correct direction, or is this, again, rhetoric that, in your view, is not going to translate into much?
In 2009, I moved a motion in Parliament to the effect that we operationalize the Tree Planting Act 2003. And the executive said, we don't have to move it through we are going to implement it to date. It is rhetoric. When I first went to China about 20 years ago, it had a brown sky. But those who have gone to China today, you've seen China is the biggest plant of trees in the world, and the environment is again white clear. So it's possible to reverse. Those who have done natural resource management, you will find that most early books, it talks about human population, land, and environment. You go to Makerere University, you go to any of the... so the issue of environmental management is a land management issue. If you manage land, you can keep people away from encroaching on lake shores, on mountain hills. You can plant them with trees. You can... these floods, I'm sorry, Bulisa, we were among the victims of the last floods of 2000, but had earlier warned my and thought I had cast them. Because I don't believe, as a natural resource manager, I don't believe that there is flooding. Because the water system recharges itself. So the moment you allow settlement on the riverbank, on the lake shores, basically you expect that at one time nature will claim. And therefore, this country in particular, in Uganda, much as I know it has a lot of other global issues, I made a plea to the Nile Basin because Bulisa is at the receiving end. When Victoria floods, the water goes through Kyoga, through the Nile, When Rwenzori floods, the water goes through Semliki, Bulisa is the receiving end before the water goes to Cairo and Sudan through Pakwach. But the government of Uganda, cabinet, has kept dust on a very important document, the National Physical Development Plan. This spatial planning, before even you talk about the physical development plan, this country was already, should by now, we should have known this issue of cities is part of it, the issue of human settlement, the land use development, the urbanization. So we make very quick pronouncements on land. A tenant versus what? This is simultaneous ownership. I don't know what Milo land, we don't want it. I don't know compulsory acquisition. Yet on the planning angle, we are making very big mistakes. I want to tell you, I came first in Kampala in 1983. I am not aware of any wetland which was encroached on. I again came back after the war to go to Ndeji in 1986 in March when President. I want to tell you, all these wetlands, the Chinawataka, Sangoda had a senior brother who was working in Utaweka Hospital. That Mukasa was a green forest. So all the land has been encroached under our government of freedoms, of liberties, of rights.
Gentlemen, we have to bring this
never
to a close.
allowed encroachment. So this business of where forests have been cut, people do what they want, build where they want, I regret it, and I think we should first be remorseful and apologize to God, because when you read the Bible, we are allowed to domineer but not to destroy. And
okay.
So climate change, global warming, God is punishing us for our indiscipline, for misusing what he gave to us.
Gentlemen, I will allow for each of us to give about 40 seconds of a wrap up. I will start with you, Mr. Wanzala.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. It's been a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed, exchanging and learning from my senior brother. But as a parting shot, I wanted to emphasize something, that yes, the budget has been delivered, and rather it's been made, and it talks about so many things, investments but I think we need to, I know we talked about the issue of taxation and all. I think I don't want to leave this show minus laying emphasis on at least 2 or 3 things. One, the need for us to subsidize or to lessen the cost of doing business for our people. Which has everything to do with taxation and all. I know the government has said they're staying the issue of increasing, but there is need for them to rethink the issue of reduction. Then 2, my senior colleague has talked about it in detail, the issue of skilling. We need to lay emphasis on skilling at all levels.
Okay.
Such that at the end of the day, at whatever level that someone gets out of school, they're able to have somewhere to start, like you mentioned. Yeah.
All right. Honorable.
Yeah, the country is ours, and when I have the young generation being very clear on some of these discourses, I am energized, because you can reverse. President Museveni at a very young age decided to do what he wanted, and his generation is in charge up to date. And you can reverse. So for me, who is an advocate of national dialogue, we can have a honest conversation of building a local content, of building an economy owned by Ugandans, of making an education system that's relevant to our population, of making sure that we have an industrial policy and a tax policy that enables import substitution and export promotion, of making sure that citizens, when they are in their country, they have hope that you can secure the future of these young people through a relevant education, that we can spend our little taxpayer in where it adds value. Where there is returns on investment.
All right.
On the cash cows, the areas, tourism, innovation. When we were young, when I went to Makerere, they used to call MDD Musiru Daladala. But now we know entertainment, music, and art is commands, and of course sports. I even don't know why we got a very good Nambola and it's not a universe of sports and recreation. So we really need to look at things in a different way. Okay. And COVID has exposed us. Learning lessons, as my close imparting shot, learning lessons from Russia. Russia stopped spending their energy, their technology into war. They went big time into air transport. They went big time in fertilizer making, in growing wheat. They went big time in gas production, in energy production, in interconnection of pipelines, and that's why nobody can wish them off. Even those who thought they were punishing Russia, now they realize it's very important. So I think Uganda, we are at such a central place in this country. I would want to hear in the next budget the refinery more than the pipeline being emphasized, the regional industrial parks being emphasized, the budget being taken from the center to the regional government. I would want to see the functionality of all the regional facilities. I would want to see this country really emphasizing securing the future as it was promised. Okay. But most importantly, the education system that is vocationalized, that does skilling, and our children, even if the population increases, they will be in their country, but with livelihood and jobs.
We have to leave it there. Honorable Stephen Birahwa Mukitale, former MP for Bulisa County, and Mr. Martin Wanzala, Executive Director, Africa Youth Development Link, we thank you for being on the big debate tonight. Dear viewer, thank you very much for being a part of the big debate. The budget was passed, it was read, and come 1st July, it will be implemented. It is your duty and my duty to make sure that these resources are put to the best use possible. Play your part as I play my part. From us at the Big Debate here at CTV, we'd like to thank you for being a part of this edition of the show. We return next week with another edition. Till then, good night, God bless you. Stay tuned and don't blink.